going to hear from Dr. Georgia Dunston, who is the founding director of the National Human Genome Center at Howard University, and Dr. Gary Puckering, the president and CEO of the National Minority Quality Forum.
Thank you for that introduction, and I also certainly want to thank Dr. Donna Christensen for the invitation to participate in this panel. I've had the pleasure of being here since the beginning this morning, and I must say that it has been very informative. For those who are still here, I just want to begin by just asking a question. Obama popularized the phrase, "This is our time. This is the moment." I would like to see, by show of hands, those who know that this is your time. So I want you to personalize that statement. All right, I asked my students, what defines this as our time? How do you personalize our time? Genomics is one of those areas that forces us to think about personalizing medicine. And that's what I've been asked to speak about. So I want to move to try to cover the slides that I have prepared for this session. I was asked to shed light to address the importance of genomics to minority health and healthcare issues, with emphasis on the role of genomics in patient-centric personalized medicine and the importance of genomics to solutions that ensure racial and ethnic diversity in clinical trials and comparative effectiveness research. And I thought I would do this by first making sure that we all have the same terminology. So this first slide has a lot of information, but if we can get through this, I think we can sail through the key points. And that's definition, that we're all talking about the same thing. I have on the left a picture of what the words on the right define as the term. I want to look at the first at the top on the left, and that's a picture of our chromosomes. Each of us inherits all of the information for making our bodies and operating our bodies from each one of our parents, and that information comes in chromosomes. So this picture that you see is two sets of chromosomes. One, a pair, one from the mom and one from the father. Now, what I want to say to each one, each of us begins life the same way, as a single cell. The egg cell from our mother has 23 chromosomes. The sperm has 23 chromosomes. And at fertilization, each of us begins life as a single cell with two complete sets of chromosomes that we call the genome. So the first definition that I'd like to give you for the genome is the complete set of instructions that each of us receives from each of our parents at the moment we begin biological life as a single cell. All of the information for making everything that we see in the fully formed bodies is already there. When we see the matured, expressed body, we have trillions of cells. And I like to stress the fact that each cell has the same genetic information. But just look at the diversity of expression of cells just on the outside. Our skin cells differ from our hair cells, differ from the nose cell, differ from fingernails. Look at the diversity on the outside. All of the cells have the same genetic information. When that first cell divided, it duplicated its genetic information and passed it to its progeny. Every time the cell divides, it duplicates its genetic information, so that when we now have trillions of cells, but all have the same genetic information. Now think about the inside. The things we don't see, our pancreas, our lungs we talked about this morning, skeletal. All of the diversity that we see in our organs, and yet all the cells have the same genomic information, the genome, the information for making all the parts of the body. What accounts for the difference? I would submit to you that the only difference between what you see and what you have is history and location. Each cell has its own unique history that brought it to its place where it is, and the environment that it's in is maintaining what you see. Our genome tells us that that is also true for the differences we see in human populations. The genome tells us very clearly that if we look at humankind as one human family, the scientific evidence is clear from multiple fronts that the human family began in Africa, and that over time there has been migrations of groups out of Africa, and these groups have adapted to the various environments over time, and as a consequence, you have differences. Now we come to today, health disparities, and we look at differences between populations in health. The genome will tell us that the only difference between populations is history and location. And the location takes in the environment. And I said earlier today that when we come together and address the challenge of health disparities, we will take care of understanding disease, because the genome comes to teach us how biology works. And if we understand how biology works, we will see that the problems of disease are an aberration of biology. Now that becomes important because the genome comes to tell us certain lessons. First of all, that if you want to solve health, if you want the knowledge for preventing disease, promoting health, eliminating health disparities, then you have got to have a whole new different view of yourself and your environment. And it is very clear that health disparities are gene environment. The other key thing too is the environment is not just what's outside. The genome comes in no uncertain terms and says you got to deal with the environment inside. And the inside environment is that environment of thoughts and feelings and the energies that clearly impact the operations of our physical parts of our body. And the reality is we have to design the experiments to do the studies to understand just as well the internal environment as we have to try to understand the external environment, and as we have to try to understand physical differences. The Genome Project forces us to personalize medicine because it is about what each of us inherits in terms of how our biology works. This is closely related to comparative effectiveness research because this deals with, as was said earlier, really looking to see what of the many approaches that are available in terms of devices, in terms of medicines, in terms of approaches. We need to understand what works best for the individual. And what works best for the individual will involve all of the factors, both in terms of their own genome, as well as their immediate environment, as well as how they perceive their environment, which is a big area that is not factored into a lot of the models, and it means that the outcomes are not going to be uniformly predictable because we will not have taken into consideration all of the facts that are involved in the decision making. One of the reasons why we have no choice, we must participate in the clinical trials that are coming up. Now, we have no choice when personalized medicine and comparative effectiveness research will determine what will be the description of the diagnoses, what will be the medicines that will be prescribed, and you will not be reimbursed if you do not adhere to the guidelines that will come from the data that's being collected. We don't have a choice. if we are going to use the access to healthcare system that we have to be a part. So we need to decide, how do we ensure that we are included in clinical trials, which become the basis for deciding what will be the practice that is going to be used. I like what I heard this morning from one gentleman about the oral health. I think the answer is to combine our challenge right now of jobs. I love the idea of engaging our young people in solving the problems as career options. I thought that was really neat, that if we combine mentoring, which is bringing them in at the K through 12, we combine mentoring with solving problems. So we bring the venture capitalists in to do what needs to be done, but we also make that an opportunity for jobs in terms of career options. I thought that was really great. This picture will help solidify the fact that you see in the third picture is a family, just trying to show that genotype it indicates that we inherit all of the information for making all the parts of our body and through genes. And we see this illustrated in the family. So getting a family history is key now in terms of understanding these chronic diseases. The bottom picture shows a population. This is illustrating that in a population, there are always going to be some individuals who will not respond, for example, to a drug. There will be others who will have an adverse effect to that second drug. And then there are those who will benefit under the conditions that the testing was done. This is always the case. I saw numbers one time where adverse drug effects were right up there if you put them together like a major disease. And that's because we have built-in diversity. Now we are developing tools to be able to test individuals and determine whether or not they can metabolize a particular medicine, or we can understand things that will determine whether it will work for them. So increasingly, as these tests are going to become available, we're going to need to know about them, because there may come a time where if your patient is given a drug for something that there's information to test whether or not they would be susceptible or not, and they have an adverse effect, that becomes a new basis then for malpractice. And in fact, I heard projecting forward that if family medicine goes the way it should, and we get the knowledge and we really get educated and what have you, it will be actually malpractice for your patients to get a disease. Now let me quickly try to go through this genome story. This is key. The genome is about two domains of knowledge: biology, how life works, and human heredity, or identity, or who we are. And we have to negotiate both of these in order to really effectively solve the problem. I draw this picture to show you the genome connects what I call the ultimate micro-reality with the macro-reality. This same genome that codes for all the proteins we're trying to put together in the cell, codes for the cells that work together to give you the tissues to the organs, the systems, the individual, the family, the unit. If life operates by laws at the ultimate level of the molecule, as we see in the cell, why do we think that life laws do not work beyond what we can measure? And I would like to make this point by my colleagues in physics actually were the ones who helped me to really appreciate. Biologists now have to indeed begin to appreciate the biophysical nature of our makeup. We have mastered in the biochemical, but the biophysical takes us into what I call our energy characterization. And the truth is, Einstein, and I better move forward because of time, but Einstein actually introduced the idea with his famous E equals MC squared. I'm going to go to Let me point out this from this slide, that the genome is sitting in the middle, negotiating information that it's receiving both from your biology, from the environment, and a multiplicity of factors. But I want to call attention to this domain on the right that we have not mastered in science. We do not incorporate into current models, and it's going to be critical with regard to predictability, and that's that domain of culture. And it is indeed the beauty of the diversity in our culture that is our key to being able to discover what are the kinds of attitudes, what are the kinds of beliefs that are actually supportive of health. We need to know this just as well as we need to know what the different sequences of the genes are. We need to understand how a person's belief system impacts their behavior. We all know that knowledge does not change behavior. Knowledge is powerful, but wisdom is supreme. And we need wisdom. We need to know how to apply the knowledge to solve the problem. And that's the challenge of our time, not just to generate knowledge. We are in a knowledge revolution, and there's no question about it. The genome brought in so much information, it introduced a whole new arena of science called bioinformatics, just to handle the knowledge coming from sequencing the genome itself. Bioinformatics, how do you collect this data? How do you store it? How do you retrieve it? Brought in a whole new area. That was just with the sequence. Then when we tried to study the environment and look at gene-environment interaction, it just overwhelmed the best mathematical constructs of how you model the interaction. And it actually led to the whole arena now of information science. The genome, I like to give you this definition of the genome. For me, the genome is the most exquisite, sophisticated information and communication system ever known. Look at the information it contains in a single cell, all of what you see, not only how to make it, but how to operate it. Communicating, every cell communicating instantaneously with another to appraise it of what the conditions are. This is the ultimate, I like to call it the quintessential gift of life. The genome comes to usher us in to a larger dimension of life with more variables that impact our health than the ones that we have traditionally measured. And it's saying, if you do not consider the fact that your inner environment, what you believe about yourself, governs your behavior, and your behavior is what is clearly related through the epidemiological studies to the risk that we see. We cannot dismiss our own concept of who we are as a template, an inner template for our body as to how it is to respond in order to give us the best adaptation for that environment. We are talking to every cell in our body that has all the genetic information about what the reality is that it has to adapt to 24/7. Your cells are listening to what you are saying, and they give you the response. That's why if you are running, you get an instant reaction from all of the organ systems that equip you for that actions. Even if you're dreaming that you're running, if you were to wake up all the systems, that image inside is powerful instructions to your genetic information about what is your environment, and it is a one-to-one communication. So we have to essentially think about what we think about. That's what I like to say. This inner world, we have to actually catch each other in what, not only what we think about, but what we say. Thoughts and words are energy, and we are on the E side of E equals MC squared. The MC squared is the manifest side or the visible side. The E side, just like we have e-health, genomics comes to tell us we are already hardwired to e-life, and that's energy. We are connected, hardwired to the universe, and the same laws that govern life in the universe govern the genome that governs the cell that governs the tissues, the organs. And if we don't have a more complete construct of ourself, then the models that we develop and the tests that we do are going to be compromised. Then I have to make the point, the genome is saying, look, the biology is good, the science is good, but the science of the genome is about science, technology, engineering, and the mathematics of this human genome that each of us has richly endowed in all of the cells of our bodies except the red cells. Now, I'm going to close by pointing out that the human genome forces us to think about how we define ourselves and how who we say we are governs our behavior. And the epidemiologists have shown us that behavior is a major risk factor in disease. And I will close showing you here. This is another statement from Einstein. He says that like everything in the universe, I'm saying that like everything in the universe, the human genome and the biology it encodes is made of energy. Now, Einstein said, the significant problems we have cannot be solved at the same level of thinking with which we created them. Now think about that. There is a relationship between what we think, what we say, and what we experience. If we want to challenge health disparities, if we want the knowledge to correct disease, we have to move upstream, Donna Christensen. I like your title. We have to move upstream to a higher vision of who we are, because we have been given the mechanism to make that vision manifest. And the joy of getting into the science now as a people, we have to have the diversity of culture. Variation is our hallmark. Variation is a discovery tool. It's variation that makes African people the most sought after people for genomic research. Why? Because it's variation that we use to probe the genome, to look for the genes, to put the genome together. And African Americans, because of our African heritage and our population history, have the richest diversity of the world's genetic information. So when we study health disparities, we have an opportunity to look at not only that aspect that's rooted or related to the biology of Africa, but to the rest of humanity as well. And I definitely close. We have to be careful. This is not just way back to Tuskegee. 2007, our Food and Drug Agency passed a law from pharmaceutical to market a drug to African Americans. The drugs, as we heard today, they are tailored to the molecular level. They are specific. Just because a particular gene may have a higher frequency in a group and more people respond, you can't target the whole group, because 50% of the individuals in that study did not respond. So we cannot afford to allow the beauty of population studies to compromise the exquisite capacity to hone in on the molecular basis that we now have with genomics, and we now have to move to understanding the biology below the level of the skin so that we give the right drug to the right person at the right time in the right dose. And we can only know that if we participate in the studies.
See them very, very often during tour events and in other places. You'll see them lobbying on Capitol Hill, that sort of thing. And then there's the more grassroots organizations, which are started by individuals who have a heart for service or a heart for children, and may not be as well funded, but certainly doing the same type of work that these other organizations are doing, whether it's at a larger scale or smaller scale. They've started in a much more humble surroundings, let's say. And there seems to be at some point a little bit of, I don't want to say conflict, but somehow not full cooperation between these two groups, as the grassroots organizations bring kids in on an educational purpose, and sometimes the larger organizations seem to have different agendas or different purposes, that sort of thing. I'm going to throw this out there to Jimmy and Dr. Banks and to you, Kelly, starting with you. How do you see the connection between the two types of organizations, the smaller grassroots organizations and the more developed organizations like the First Tee, and what are you doing to make sure that they work together for the good of the children?
Okay. Well, I think the kind of perception that the First Tee has is that we're the great big gorilla out there and we're gobbling up all the participants in golf. We really do welcome the participation of existing organizations. Quite a few of our First Tee chapters had their inception, if you will, in organizations that predated the First Tee. And we certainly encourage partnerships between some of those organizations and our First Tee chapters. We don't actually operate any golf courses at the home office level, which is where I work. So most of the partnership, or all of the partnerships that take place occur at the local level. And so what we have been encouraging our chapters to do is to work with some of those junior golf organizations that have been in existence for a while, to bring their young people to our program, to give them some of the same opportunities that the participants in our program do enjoy. And we're seeing some examples of those taking place. I can't sit here and say that it's happened across the board, but we are definitely seeing some benefits there.
Okay. Jimmy, you want to jump in? And, again, I want to keep it real because, we know what this atmosphere is. There's only so many resources to go around. So how do you see?
Doc, you want to go? Or I want to lob it to you. You want to?
Okay, I think what we're seeing with the First Tee project is that at Langston we have about 5 different youth programs that we entertain during the summer and during after-school programs throughout the year. And what we are finding is that we have a large number of kids who would like to come into a program, and one of the first things they want to know, do you have a First Tee program? And we always say yes. And we also have other projects that are going. We have the Junior Boys and Girls Club, Mason's Army. We have an exclusive girls club that we're working with. And so what is happening is that we're finding that as we go from city to city, and as Jimmy mentioned, we are also doing an international program in St. Lucia and also in the Bahamas. We go there annually, and we're finding that just because we introduced that, in that incident that Jimmy mentioned that we were in St. Lucia, only 75 kids per day, we said, and they begged their directors to bring them on Saturday after they had been there on Friday to say, we need to have an opportunity. And so I think that this is a community issue. It's an opportunity that we're giving kids, not only for, maybe 50 or 100, but we're really addressing a major, up to 500 kids per year we're getting to. But it all bases on the fact that we have to work together. And we must pull this concept together that we're not just doing the golf programs, but we're expanding in education and character building as well. Jim?
No, I kind of piggyback on that as well. And I think the problem becomes one of access. How does one access a facility that's operating with the First Tee chapter in place, and then you have the grassroots who started to provide access to kids. The kids become somewhat confused. The parents become somewhat confused. My whole concept is to try to find a way to bridge the gap between First Tee and the grassroots programs. The thing that I've asked about for many years now is how can we involve the academic side that we're so concerned about with our kids into the First Tee program. Mm-hmm. Certainly First Tee has the most resources. Our kids that we're preparing to play golf, we need to be preparing those kids to pass the SAT. Okay? Because most of our kids, as we know, will not be professional golfers. Right. So once we prepare those kids to become good citizens, then they can go back and spread the word. First Tee is great, grassroots is great. I got a chance to get a great education. Supplemental education is most important, I know, because, things that are happening in the classroom today in our schools throughout the country, our kids are struggling. So we have to have a resource where we can have supplemental educational activities for our kids to be in place at golf courses if we're going to use the game of golf as the vehicle to move things forward. And that's what we've tried to do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll throw one more question out there, too. This one's going to be directed at Junior Bridgman. There clearly is a need for an increase in knowledge and skills in the field of entrepreneurship or in the realm of entrepreneurship of which we can say you are expert. And that includes not only the game of golf, that includes all industries, whatever business people would happen to want to go into. Is there a program in place that sort of mirrors the educational opportunities that we see out here, the academic opportunities, let's say, that combines the teaching of golf with that pure entrepreneurial aspect? And if so, is that within the PGA, or is it outside the PGA, or where do you, if it doesn't exist, where do you see it most well placed?
You know, it's a little bit, I think, in all of those areas, and that may not directly answer the question, but when you look at the people that own golf courses, you know, they are entrepreneurs. I mean, if you own a golf course, you've pretty much put it on the line. You went out and borrowed money, bought a golf course, and normally most of them employ 30 to 50 people. Right. And so they've had that entrepreneur spirit. They've loved golf or were a golf professional and wanted to make that their business. But real quickly, I would, you know, I just got to say, when you look back, you got to look at, you know, Renee Powell's dad and what she's done as pioneers, you know, in entrepreneurship. When you look at, Ernie talked about, you know, the problem or the access to the game and diversity, and I will tell you by being on the board that he's done a tremendous job with the board. You know, when he walks in, that makes two of us, you know, so just to give you an idea of, and a lot of people there have been there in the game of golf for a long time, so they come with a different viewpoint to a lot of things. But what I want to say is you talk about entrepreneurship. If I had known when I was in college what you know today, or someone told me, I would have spent more time in computer class. I mean, I would have gotten involved with Apple and with all of them. I mean, I wouldn't even play basketball. I had a lot more money today doing that than playing the games. I say that to say it's about knowledge for opportunities. And if we can take golf and introduce the kids to a fun sport that offers a lot of healthy benefits and everything, and yet focus on the educational aspect, get them ready to pass the SAT and all that. The game of golf is more than just playing. I mean, you look at the golf ball manufacturers, clothing manufacturers, even the people that make the little tees that go on the ground. I mean, there's a business there, so it's a lot more entrepreneur, a lot more opportunities, but you just have to make people aware of the opportunities.
Thank you. So Dr. Banks, and then Ronnie, I'd like you to weigh on this one too. Sure. Dr. Banks first.
I think if we take a look at that idea that I introduced a seminar 2 years ago at Langston, and it was called Turf Management. And the turf management concept is another entrepreneur system. Over $50 million a year goes into selecting turf that will go into this idea of playing golf. If you remember 2 years ago when the Washington baseball team was putting together this structure of what kind of turf would go on the field, what would be the best field turf. So I invited members from Department of Agriculture, Maryland has an agriculture, University of Maryland has an agriculture unit, PGA, USGA, bring all of their researchers here. And they wanted to know, could Howard put on a research project for that? And just uniquely, I had one of my friends who teaches in the physics department said, yes, we can sponsor this because we have a unique program going on in research in physics called soil physics. Another friend of mine who's also in the biology department at Howard is developing a new strain of bluegrass that is resistant to the fertilizer or diseases that go into this. So I bring this up because now, if you look at the United States government, they are beginning to get into this idea of environmental green. They want to know, are your golf courses green? Are your activities green? So this is another opportunity for our students leaving Howard and the students who we're having in our junior programs, another opportunity. It is a huge business that, if you looked at it, aren't many minorities involved in turf management. So we're trying to get them involved in this greening of golf courses, this environmental concept.
And following up on that, it's the first time, I mean, there's an organization called We Are Golf. What's that mean? Well, it's the first time that the USGA, the PGA, the LPGA, the golf course superintendents, the golf course managers, all these organizations that are involved in the business of golf have come together. And for the benefit of the game of golf, but it's the first time they've seen, when you look at it all, that they look at it and say, there are all these opportunities out there, but where are the people going to come from that are going to work in this business? And that's the other point I wanted to make. When you talk about entrepreneurship, if you just look at the game of golf and the people that are in golf today, they all realize that for me to be successful, somebody's got to play. And who's going to play the game 15, 20 years from now? The world's going to look a lot different. It's going to be a lot of different people playing the golf that aren't playing it today, so they know they have to get them involved in the game. Not everybody's going to be a pro, but if I can get them involved in turf management and all these other kind of things, that's going to be to my benefit. So I just throw that out, that that's the opportunity for everybody in the game of golf.
Thank you, right.
Yeah, and I think some of it, again, is to me, it's that misconception, again, of what a golf professional is and what a professional golfer is. And I can think back to myself in '92 when I got my Class A. I remember all my friends saying, when am I going to see you on television? And because they thought that if you were going to get a Class A, you were a golf professional, does that mean that you are, that's what people think when they hear the word golf professional. They don't distinguish the two. And I can remember back when I did get that classification, there was probably, and Ernie, you may help me with these numbers, but there were probably only less than 10 classifications within the PGA of America. Now there's probably over 20.
Yeah, about 18, 19.
18, 19 different classifications within the PGA of America. Sales, there's marketing, there's tournament management. There's so many different classifications within the PGA of America. The agronomy piece as well. You know, even your guys that are out working for Nike and Reebok and Adidas and Under Armour, they're Class A PGA professionals. Who better to sell the apparel and the product than golf professionals? And so that's what I think people miss. They're going, well, but you're not on TV with Tiger, then bro, you're not a pro. But you're missing it, you know, and that's what I mean, and that's the piece that needs to be educated, and people need to understand that there are so many different facets to the game and the business of golf. But if they don't see you on a golf course playing golf, then you can't be a pro, and that's where I think the challenge is. And again, you know, Ernie and I have been having some conversations, and I know we're going to follow up on these conversations after this, on getting some opportunities to go to some of these HBCUs. I came from an HBCU. Let me go in there. And let me go talk to some of these kids that are ready to come out of business school, who are just getting ready to graduate, and let me hang out with them for that last week and start this program. You know, golf is the sport of business. That's what it is. It's the sport of business. And let's talk to these kids, and companies, you know, should bring us in and have us talk to these kids, because those are who you want to hire. You want to hire these kids who are going to play golf with your clients. So get us out there and let us expose them to the game of golf right now when they're seniors, getting ready to graduate and go out into the business world, because that is the edge they need when they put their resumes on the table. When someone looks at the resumes, they all look alike. Heck, we can make a resume say anything. But when they say, hey, you play golf, that might be the edge you need to get that job. And as Junior said, and when you get out there, you'll find they're not that good. They're really not as good as you thought. You were surprised. I mean, you were really surprised. And you said, man, you've been playing golf for 15 years and that's as good as you are? Well, you know, golf is hard. Let's be real. Golf is a very hard sport. And if you work 60 hours a week and you think you can play golf on Saturdays and not shoot 100, then I'm telling you now, you can't do it. Okay? And he said his son was 9 years old. And he said, my son just started playing. And his son got a wake-up call. Golf was hard. And it did, but the perseverance that he's taken to stick with it, getting some lessons and doing those things, he'll become better at it, like all of us out here who play golf. It was no joke. You all played football, baseball, basketball when we grew up, and then you tried golf. And you got humbled real fast. It's not easy. It's not easy, so that's why we're not asking them to be professional golfers like Junior said. Just learn the basic etiquette of the game. Know the things you're supposed to do when you're out there, and you're going to close all kind of business deals. My brother's a member down here at Woodmore. He joined it so he can take his clients there. That's the only reason he joined the club. So, you know, that's really what it's about, is the awareness piece of what a golf professional really is. And it's not what people think it is. They don't see you on television, then you can't be a pro. Not true. Not true.
I tend to agree with you on this one. Do we have a question from the audience?
There were quite a few questions.
I'm going to get one more question in, and then we're going to take them from the audience. We'll get one more question in, and we'll take one more here. Get one more question in. Because I just want to piggyback on something that you just said, which was the fact that Tiger, or that the professional, whether professional is good or not, or whether you see success on the golf course, that sort of thing. Okay, clearly, that is probably not a factor because Tiger has been on the tour for 13 years, going on 14.
Right.
And there are less African-American professionals on the tour than when he came on the tour.
Exactly.
So what happened to the Tiger effect? No, was there ever a Tiger effect? So the question is really, so since we know that that isn't necessarily, Tiger being successful on the course doesn't necessarily mean success for anybody else on the course. Does Tiger being successful on the course mean success off the course? Is that meant to attract people to the business? Have you seen that in your travels? Has that attracted people to business? Or what really will bring people to the game? Does success on the course really have anything to do with it?
I think Tiger, if anything, he made it more of an awareness about golf and minorities, and Tiger has opened it up for all minorities, and of course he's going to tell you that as well because he's not going to be the voice of black folks. He's just not going to do that, and that's okay that he's not. But he's opened it up as an awareness piece for all minorities in the golf business, and he does it for everybody. But to your question, I think that what has happened is that what people are realizing is that the accessibility of being able to get out, to the golf course is not as easy as it is to pick up a basketball and go down the street and shoot some jumpers. And so, you need that type of accessibility, and it needs to be sustained like Jimmy's program. You need programs that are sustainable more than just to put some kids in a bus and bring them to the golf course and hit some balls today and then put them off the bus and leave them and they never hit balls again. The first tee, and so I commend those programs for, if nothing else, for those things. They need to be programs that have some sustainability to them so that I can take everybody here out and hit some balls today, and after that, what? So they need more to it than that, and that's what these programs are doing. So hopefully in time we'll start to see some of the fruits of those labors, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Thank you very much. I think we will open up to questions now because I get run off if I don't. But back here in the back row, please.
Thank you. I guess in the flesh manifestation of what Attorney Allison mentioned, the professional golf manager program at the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And as he mentioned, the program has been put in place by the PGA, but also with the assistance of the African American Golfers Hall of Fame, of which Congressman Clay is a member. My concern is this. Thank you. As I hear talk about scholarship dollars, over the years, a number of organizations have done a pretty good job of providing dollars for individuals who go to college, universities, play golf on the teams, and then that's kind of it. What we have not apparently recognized is that there are, in fact, 20 schools out there that are the direct conduit to being golfing professionals. Yes, we're the first and only historically black college, and we look forward to work with all of you in the room here. But I guess my question is, what can we do, to the panelists, what can you do to help us change that emphasis, to help get it across that there is a clear conduit to becoming a golfing professional through those 20 schools, and sort of get that scholarship money shifted from individuals who may be playing on golf teams, they may do business or psychology or whatever the case might be, but if they really are passionate about golf and becoming golfing professionals, then the PGA has a very clear route to doing that through UMES plus the other 19 schools that are out there. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you that I'm fortunate, again, in the position that I'm in, because when I came in, one of the first things I had talked to Sheila about, and again, I've only been there a short period of time, almost 2 years, was that I wanted to start an internship program, and we did. And we went down to the National Minority Golf Championship in Port St. Lucie, and the very first year that we did it, I was able to bring in actually 3 young ladies that came in. I had one from Kent State, I had one from Hampton, and I had one from Indiana State. And I had these 3 young ladies down, and they spent the summer with me at Innisbrook. And it was the funny thing about those girls were when they came in, they wanted to learn everything, and so I ended up hanging out. They were in the accounting department, they were in reservations, they were in F&B, and I'd love to have some kids from University of Maryland Eastern Shore come down and do an internship with me. I got how fast can you get them down there is what I'm saying. So here's my card, I'm going to give it to you when we leave, so we can talk about that for sure. So I'm fortunate because I am in a position, like some people said, that some people who are in positions to do some things, to do them. So, but I'm one small, piece, and it's a little bit at a time, but I am doing that, and Sheila, she knocked me upside my head if I don't, so it's all good with her. And when she met these young ladies, she was, ecstatic. And it's about the relationships that we build with those kids as well.
Can I take a stab at your question as well? I personally think that there are tremendous opportunities to get in front of many of the golf, the African American golf associations out there, and present to them that we do have this program, because they're raising monies for scholarships, but basically to get a kid into college, not necessarily to get into a golf management program. And I think from a standpoint of PGA, we've done a very poor job of trying to connect with these different organizations to say, listen, we need your help to help provide scholarships to get minority kids into the Professional Golf Management University, and specifically at University of Maryland Shore. So I would like to see how we can work closer together, and because I know a lot of these organizations, and just to say do it, it would be, they'll do it.
Yeah, I'd like to say Ernie is absolutely right about that, because the thing is that they don't know about it. Right. The kids don't know about it. We need to allow and let the kids know in high school and during their freshman year in school that this school and the program exists, because they have no idea.
I think just to follow up quickly on that, is that I think if you take a look at this concept of the education piece, if we then prepare our students who are in our junior programs, we prepare them not just to take an SAT to qualify, but they are qualified academically. Our object is to get them qualified to get an academic scholarship. That academic scholarship will carry them in any profession, any direction that they want to. So our bottom line is to get them ready and prepped to go to college. So we were looking at those NCAA transitions, but I think we're ready to move those transitions to all youth. And if they select a golf profession, that's fine, but they have a choice, and they have a choice because they're academically sound.
Thank you. We've got the microphone right here.
Yes, thank you, panel, for the very informative information. I'm Ray Savoy, Director and Founder of Langston Junior Boys and Girls. Work very closely with Jimmy Garvin up here and Dr. Banks. My question pertains to the minority as a professional golfer. And I've found through my years and knowledge of being in the game that it's very difficult for a minority to get the opportunity to pursue this profession in the realm of which they would like to do. Why? Number one, financial support. To the panel or to the business, corporate people, have there been any consideration of setting aside funds that would help a minority golfer? As we know, let's be realistic, that on the other side of the coin, there are many opportunities for the other golfer. There are funds allotted. There are things that are set aside so that they get the opportunity. So my question is, in the corporate, the support for a minority golfer to pursue that career. The other thing is, I understand, like has been mentioned many times, about the educational piece. And I find that is very true and wholesome for the golf professional, not the professional golfer, where they pursue as far as getting the knowledge and ability to make a living in a different fashion and form. But please, if anyone on the panel could help me with this, on where we could get this corporate type of attitude or mindset that we're going to give this this young man, young lady, an opportunity. Maybe, Renee, you can address that.
Well, what I will say, and I think that probably Junior can speak to the corporate side, but I think that, there are so many athletes out there now, there's so many entertainers that love the game of golf. And somehow, if we could get some of them to also understand that there are young people that have a lot of talent. I mean, if they love the game of golf and they also see that there's no one out there other than Tiger, whereas back in the 70s there were 10 or 12 male professionals on the PGA Tour at one time. So we've had a bit of a disconnect somewhere, and I think so. So I think that it's getting that, creating that better awareness and to those who love the game and also can afford to put some money in, because that's what they always did on the tours before. They would get like sort of put together sort of a stable, and then different people would put money in to sponsor different young people, and they were white young people on the tour. But I think that we as black people need to be able to think that way too, because there are enough people out there now who can do it. And you can speak to the corporate side of that.
And I think that's true, and what you're saying is absolutely true. I was not aware of a lot of the things that went on until I had the opportunity to sit down with, know someone that's in the African American Hall of Fame, George Johnson. And when he told me what it was like trying to get on tour and what they had to do, was the first time I had any knowledge of that. And that's not to say that that's my fault for not knowing. I'll put it that way. But to answer your question, I think there are a lot of, Renee said, a lot of actors, entertainers, athletes that love the game of golf. They just don't know, and that's our fault again, what it takes to get on tour. They think that, like me, you play in college and then somebody pays you to play golf. And so, but they don't know that the process you have to really go through, and they need to be educated, because there are people out there I know that would contribute to the opportunity for someone to be on tour and maybe to be the next Tiger or whomever, or the next Renee, however you want to say it, but they just don't know. And that's our fault for not really educating the business community and the corporate world on what they can do to make this possible.
So maybe that's something we can do corporately, is to try to set up some sort of clearinghouse for funds and for companies and begin to make connections between potential golfers and potential sponsors. We'll go here, and then we'll bring the microphone over here. Is there someone to help bring the microphone to? Okay. Hi.
I just want to get back to the business side of golf. And one of the reasons, in sports in general, we play the sport, but we don't get involved in the business side. I went to Arizona State, and I didn't learn golf down there like I should have. But at Arizona State, we had pro, a lot of my friends went pro. And then I ran track. And the guys used to come on there, these agents will come on there, come and talk to us about going pro. And we realized all these agents, every guy was white. They weren't as smart as most of my friends. And then a couple of my buddies decided to go to law school, become agents, get on the business side. But it was by experience of just seeing me and our friends get ripped off, rather than someone pushing us at a very, very young age to get on the business side, that you can go to law school, you can become an accountant. So my issue, basically my question is, from a curriculum perspective, and approach First Tee, Garvin, what you guys are saying, look, not only in golf, but in sports in general, that there's a business side of this, and how are you guys integrating in these kids? Like, even if you play basketball, you may have the kid out there, there's a business side to basketball, because what we are producing in just sports in general are kids who play the game, but don't understand the business side of the game. What have you guys done to push that whole thinking of the business side of sports in general?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. We were talking earlier about the Professional Golf Management Program, which is specifically to become a PGA member. But what I'm finding is that many of the universities do have sports management programs, and that's new on the. It's many of our students our black kids are not going to these programs. They're starting to go into them now, but that's where you really learn all the different aspects of what it takes to really be in the business of, as you're speaking here. And I would encourage them to look at, the more of those universities that have those kinds of programs. and internships as well. I mean, IMG, for example, if you walk around the office at IMG and look at the number, IMG is like the big promoter for sports in general. But if you look inside there, you don't see a lot of people of color that are agents. And I think whether they're supporting black athletes or whatever, it's just not there. So I think that's another area that we can actually pursue.
And the first tee, that really has not been a focus of ours, to be quite honest with you, the business side of golf, because we're still just trying to get to the penetration point of being able just to expose kids to the sport. And our kids are a lot younger, too. So what we've done, though, is we do offer scholarships. We have partnered with the PGA of America, and several of our scholars have actually gone to the PGM schools, and they've graduated and they've been placed with golf courses. We do also participate in the diversity internship program that the PGA Tour sponsors. So we are offering some opportunities, but I would not be telling you the truth if I told you that was a huge focus of ours. It's not.
So, over next question.
Thank you. I want to go back a couple of panelists to connect with something that was said earlier. And I understand that the focus of this session is really about youth, but I want to bring to your attention another group. I'm the Student Affairs Administrator for Bennett College for Women. And I was charged a couple of years ago with finding some athletics at a fiscally fragile institution. So the first thing I thought of was golf, and I got a volunteer coach, teacher, to come to work with the young women at Bennett. These are some of them. I would like to say that we are an HBCU. I heard that mentioned. You might want to help. These are not youth necessarily, but we have them from 17 to 24 mostly. And so what I'm looking for is some help. Thank you. At an earlier session, they said, just ask for what you want. And a young lady got what she wanted, so here I am. These young women need to learn the game. They also need to know more about the business of the game. We have the business majors and the psychology and the aspiring lawyers, but we don't have a sports management program. I don't think we want one of those. What we want is to know how to use the game to help us to be successful in whatever our careers are. So is there some help you can offer us?
Yes, I'll give you my card as soon as this meeting is over.
I will echo your comment. When I was practicing law, it used to be pretty commonplace that on Friday afternoons, all the male associates and partners would be out in the golf course playing golf and getting new business, and all the female associates and partners would be in the office at the computers. None of us knew how to play the game, and we felt like we were missing out on some key opportunities, one, to generate business for ourselves and to be more successful with our practices. So I do echo your desire to get them introduced to the sport, because I do think it will have a tremendous benefit for them professionally.
Anybody else want to address that? As we go forward, I want to let everybody know that, number one, since we started a little bit late, we're going to run a little bit late, so we're not going to leave in, I think, at the appointed time. We do have at least 15 more minutes in the room, so we don't have to feel that rushed about being here. But I also want to note that we do have many people who want to ask questions and make comments, so if you can keep your questions and comments as brief as possible, we'll be able to accommodate as many people as possible. Thank you.
I don't need it. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. I am the mom of an 8-year-old, and if you've addressed this already, I'd step out briefly, I'm sorry. But he just discovered his love for golf this year. He wants to quit school and just do golf. And I said, no, you can't. But he is in a rural area, and the only reason he got to do this is because of our local African American Golf Association. They're paying for his lessons. So it's changed his life. He's shy and everything. This brings out the passion in him. My question is, are there programs for people who aren't in metropolitan areas for 8-year-old boys who would like to go to workshops and perhaps can't afford it? Do you have any programs like that? I'm in Columbus, Mississippi. Yeah. We travel 30 miles every week for lessons because he loves it.
Yeah.
Are you close to Jackson?
Thank you.
I don't know the geographic.
No, I'm about an hour and a half up from Jackson. I'm about an hour and a half from Jackson.
I would say this, that at most golf professionals, most PGA and LPGA players, teaching professionals, will conduct and host golf programs for youngsters throughout the summer months. So my suggestion is to find, you're going to be around, all the golf professionals around there. So find and get him into like group lessons, because then he will have some other, some other youngsters his age that will be able to play, and that will help to keep him in the game too. And then the cost is going to be less too if you're doing group and not private lessons. Okay.
I also think that maybe you should speak to Ms. Martin after the meeting to see if you start a First Tee chapter down in your city.
Jackson is the closest.
I did. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Pinnell. I work for the National Recreation and Park Association. We represent local and state park and rec agencies across the country. And trying to be brief, but I have a two-part question, if I may. One is, what experience have any of the panelists had in engaging local park and recreation agencies? Because I know that many of them, they may not have the facilities or the resources, but they certainly have the kids. Mr. Garvin's talked about exposure and access. That certainly is a way to expose a great number of kids to golf at an early age, is to involve your park and recreation agencies. So I'm just wondering what experience you've had with that and any ways that we can make that better. Second question is, of course, everyone wants the money. Golf is not an inexpensive activity, and I know just from working with park and recreation agencies, it's always a question of where the resources are at. And Congressman Clay has left, but we've authored some legislation that would provide some federal money. He's one of 131 co-sponsors on a bill that would provide federal money specifically for recreation areas and facilities in urban areas. But as we know, we cannot always rely on that type of funding. So a little bit different than the other gentleman's question about money, but is there a way that we can pool resources, or what ideas do you have about pooling resources to not just assist aspiring professional golfers, but to be able to sustain these programs at the local level so that kids can enjoy the game and can get exposed to all the different benefits that come from participating in golf, not as aspiring professionals, but just as aspiring young people who are trying to develop and find different ways to pursue different avenues?
A while back, and I'll check on this. I'd like to get your card afterwards, but about a couple of years ago, the National Golf Course Owners Association and the Parks and Rec Department started this initiative to see how they could work closer together, and I'll get data on where that is, but certainly it does represent an opportunity because many of the Parks and Rec Department are members of the National Golf Course Owners Association, so that I could certainly follow up with you on a later time with that one. But a good suggestion.
In addition to that, I think here in Washington, we work closely with Councilmember Harry Thomas, who is also director of the Park and Recreation Program as well as libraries, and he's been very instrumental in helping us to see that any funds available within the city in Parks and Rec, we absolutely have exposure to. He's had any number of workshops. Every year he sponsors a major workshop to bring as many kids during the summer into the program, and sponsors them also outside of the project. So which is an excellent idea. If you take a look at that combination of after-school programs with a library combination with any parks and recreation facility, that's where the kids are. And we have to have those in order to expand as many programs as we can. And that's where we're focusing our education program as well. So at Langston, we are very much involved. Prior to Harry Thomas, we had Councilmember Vincent Orange, who was representing and had that same responsibility. So it's a combination, working with the city, education, with libraries, as well as arts and crafts or whatever. So it's an excellent idea.
To piggyback on that, I think the answer to your question is that there's going to have to be more public access. I mean, throughout the country, all we have are predominantly country clubs. our kids are not well enough to be a part of country clubs. So we have to do a better job as individuals who can make a difference in trying to find creative ways to either, one, develop a working relationship with the city in which you're in that has a public golf course or private golf course or country club to make sure our kids have access. Because access is going to be the key to success moving forward. And then, for the last 10, 15 years, moving throughout the country, there are no public golf courses anymore. So that's going to be the key, I think.
I will add that I mentioned that a lot of our local partners are 501c3s, so you did nonprofits, but quite a few of them are also Parks and Recreation Department. So we have had a very good relationship with the National Parks and Recreation Association. We've attended the trade shows. We've spoken at their trade shows, presented at the trade shows, and we do offer opportunities, obviously, for different parks departments to come and be a part of the First Tee. To your point, Jimmy, about the access, many of our chapters form what we call affiliate relationships with other golf courses in their communities. They can be 18-hole, 9-hole, whatever, but quite a number of those are with the city golf courses in whatever area they happen to be in. So we are very heavily involved with the cities and the parks.
I have a few more questions here. Microphones here.
Hello. My name is Williams. I'm born in North Carolina, but living now in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I've been playing golf for many years. I have 4 brothers that play, I have nephews that play, and all my brothers have shot 70 or better, all right, over the years. And I have one brother that have turned pro, Ed Williams. Some of you might know him. But I want you to know why many of us not going to become Tiger Woods is that golf is a game that you keep your own score. And our people, more like I found out, they be honest and they haven't broken no records in my area, and they play by themselves, all right? So when you keep your own score and you have to win tournaments to get sponsors, all right? So many of these people won tournaments, and, that's how it goes. And I've had 3 hole-in-ones. That's the truth, though. I had 3 hole-in-ones, and I've won tournaments, though, but it's tough to get sponsors to play. You need a lot of money. You got to, you can't have a job to go.
What's your question?
And, but I mean, Tiger's good, and a lot of guys are good. We got a lot of blacks that can play golf, and they can beat a whole lot out there. And the question is, we need a tour, because like the Hooter Tour, they put like 5 or 6 guys into the pros every year. So if we had a tour, and then the best golfers in that tour can go to the PGA, all right? Why can't we do that?
Okay, so like the UGA tour, I think was brought up earlier. Yeah. Ms. Powell, maybe you want to speak to that, Ms. Powell?
Well, getting them more involved.
Sort of the idea of a satellite tour or a feeder tour.
Yeah, well,
comprised of minority golfers.
Yeah, I think that that is a great idea, and I think there still are a lot of associations and organizations out there that do a lot of programs such as that. I mean, there are so many clubs around the country that host golf tournaments, and some of them still have divisions for professionals. So it's out there, but it's also, I guess, getting more people exposed to it. I know there's a gentleman out in California who sends out a list of all the tournaments all over the country, and there's loads and loads of them. And I know and they do list them in, if you're familiar with the African American Golfers Digest magazine, you will find them listed there. So there are still tournaments that people can play in. It's not the same tour as it was before during the UGA, but there are a lot of tournaments throughout the country every week, and 4 and 5 every week.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that begs the question of how to get to those things, the expenses involved and that sort of thing. And we've been talking about that, how to finance that sort of thing. But you're saying the competitive opportunities are there.
Right, and again, with all of those golf clubs, if all those golf clubs went back to help to form some youth programs, and then those could help to fund those young people.
Right. Okay.
And that's the way it was done, starting back in the 1920s.
All right. Anybody else? Any other panel member want to weigh in on that one? Next question. Where's the microphone?
Just turn it on.
Ma'am, I'm not ignoring anybody. We'll get to. There's a lot of people want to ask questions. I promise you. You've been very patient, and you will get an opportunity.
Just take a question.
Quick question. I'm wondering, as I look back at the glorious history of golf, I mean, there's been so much to talk about, the advances, but as we move into the 21st century, we're trying to make progress. And I'm wondering if anyone has looked at the quality of golf instruction at some of the HBCUs. I mean, oftentimes, you know, you have people who are ex-football players, or they just get into golf because it's an extra check. That's a real disservice to the kids who are coming in with high aspirations. When I look at this young man over here, 8-year-old, I mean, God forbid if he was to end up at one of these schools where there isn't true instruction going on. I mean, that's a true disservice. So my question is simple. Is anyone looking at, is there any regulatory board, is somebody looking at to make sure that the kids that are coming into these programs are truly being evaluated with someone who can recognize a golf swing?
That's so ironic. When I was at South Carolina State, my golf coach was the defensive coordinator on the football team. And when we played bad, we got cussed out like you do at halftime when you're playing bad. I mean, we were like, dang, coach, I'm supposed to be mad now and go play golf? And that's a very good question. And I know I can't answer it. I mean, I know that there would be really some benefit in regards to having some golf professionals at some of these HBCUs. But I don't know if the HBCUs, I don't want to say they don't look at their golf programs as viable, programs, but I don't know where's the money. You know, I mean, if you got, I mean, that's the reason why I think that the defensive coordinator was the football coach, because I don't think they hired a golf coach to come right in and do it. I think that was kind of what it was.
Let me take a stab at that one as well.
Then versus now?
109. Let me give you facts and figures, ma'am. Let me try to answer your question as well. We host the National Minority Collegiate Golf Championship in Port St. Lucie, and when we first started hosting that event, the scores of the kids average up in the 80s and 90s. And over the years, what we've seen is that the scores of these same schools are now producing low 70s and in the under par, primarily because there has been a shift in the type of instruction they're getting. What's starting to happen in some cities is that there's a partnership between the Historical University and a local golf course, and the golf professional provided some instruction for them. Not nearly enough, but we are starting to see a better quality play because there is a closer tie-in to the university than what it was in the past. But we still need to have a head professional managing and coaching the teams. Those teams that do have professionals coaching them, you can certainly tell a difference in the quality of play.
And I will also say this, that I know I coached, was an assistant coach at a college up in Cleveland, Ohio. And it wasn't an HBCU school, but because I basically went and did the coaching because the real golf coach was the assistant basketball coach and didn't know anything about golf. So in Division III schools, you know, that's how it is. They go from one sport to the other, and they don't normally know the game, and they don't normally maybe have the money to hire someone else. So I went and I volunteered my time to coach there. I wish I could clone myself.
Next question.
2 quick questions. One, what are some ways to get golf clubs and bags and golf balls and gloves in kids' hands who can't afford to get them themselves? And 2, how can I find out information about internships at Innisbrook?
Talk to me when we're done.
Simple. Sorry.
We get donations all the time. Our chapters are people are constantly giving them donations of clubs and things that the kids can use, and they just obviously have to cut them down to the sizes that the kids can work with better. But yeah, just individuals constantly. We actually have a partnership with a supplier who also provides some clubs that we were able to give out to our chapters for our kids too. Yeah.
U.S. Kids Golf has a program that it's a very good program where they really give really reduced prices for juniors. And if I get your card, then I can connect you in with them and make a recommendation. They give you really, it won't be free, but good prices. Right. Right. That's another good one. Exactly.
Are you looking for new stuff or used stuff or just any stuff?
Yeah.
All right. What part of it?
These are examples just for the crowd. It's not
Yeah.
in particular mind.
Okay. All right.
Where's the microphone?
I just want to make an observation that there are a few other members of the African American Golfers Hall of Fame in the audience, and they're here today to support the program. The University of Maryland, would you please? Renee Powell, Jimmy Garvin, and there were a couple others. But my observation is that we're talking about raising money, and all of you all are golf enthusiasts. However, Jimmy Garvin is hosting a golf tournament tomorrow. Why don't y'all go out to Langston and support the golf tournament and spend some money, because he's going to put the money back into the community with the real kids.
Hey, you better get that lady.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Tony Wilson with Sweet Spot Apparel. We're a minority-owned golf apparel manufacturer out of Atlanta, Georgia. Mr. Ellison, thank you. Mr. Ellison is familiar with our company. We're an official diversity supplier to PGA of America. We've been in business for 9 years. We've been manufacturing our own product that you see that I'm wearing here for the past 3 years. Under Armour, Greg Norman, some of the brands that you had mentioned before, they're all manufactured in some of the same places. None of those companies own those facilities. So we can do the same manufacturing, produce high quality, affordable golf apparel. That's why I gave you that, my card there. You talked about money for other golfers that are trying to come up on the tour. Every quarter we do a Just Buy One campaign where $10 of every $40 shirt goes to fund minority golfers that are on the mini tours. So there's a young brother out of University of Southern California, Josh Wooding, who plays on the Hooters Tour, and he wears our apparel. Now we also have Brad Bryant on the Senior PGA Tour, professional tour player who won a US Open. Exactly, out of Orlando. He wears our apparel when he plays. I've spoken to Ms. Powell before. So when we talk about, like, it doesn't have to be federal funds. All right, it doesn't have to be donated money. All right, everybody wears a golf shirt. Everybody wears a polo, even corporations. There's some big things that we're doing with Fortune 100 companies that have to have apparel for their casual Fridays and their casual Saturdays. And now we're letting them know that there is a tier 1 minority-owned golf apparel manufacturer that can supply them. It's Sweet Spot Apparel. If you have any questions, I have my cards. We do a lot with junior golf programs as well.
I guess there wasn't any question attached to that. Right. If we let
that lady, please.
Can we let the question in the back, please?
I guess I have to apologize to you.
It's all good.
Not necessary.
Not necessarily. Okay, so let me start.
I love your
Losing
passion.
my voice, one thing, and I wanted to say this before I just lose it completely. I'm a product of the neighborhood Brown Junior High School, so I know about Langston. I wonder, when you all talking about management, at one time Langston was closed down. Am I incorrect in that? Okay, so now how would you incorporate that into a program if you were going to have a college course into keeping a public and not a fancy country club golf course? How do you keep it open and operating? And the other part of it is, with the new construction coming down H Street, is Langston going to be able to get revitalized?
Jim, you best want to speak to that.
I was trying to dodge that question, pass it back to you. But the real answer is, you know, over the past 10 to 15 years, we've been taking an approach to try to find creative ways to find dollars to revitalize Langston. There's no federal funding available for it at this time, but we're actually lobbying to try to make sure that we get some at some point to help support our efforts. In terms of how do you keep from keeping the doors open at a public golf course. I think we've done a pretty good job over the last 25 years at Langston. And the way that we do it is we have 3 courses in the city, and we take the money from the one that's most profitable and put it in the other 2. So that's how the other 2 operates. So we have a system that works for us, that makes sure that we always are open, we always affordable and accessible, and we always have space for our junior programs. Most of the kids that come to our program, all of the kids that come to our program don't spend a dime. Free practice balls, free time on the golf course. Anytime they come, the door's open to them. So that's how we reinvest back into the community. It's certainly going to help Langston. Yes, it can't hurt us. It's going to help.
And I could piggyback on that, is that when I joined the Langston group back in 2000, with the bicentennial celebration, the city projected 100 years of new growth within the city. Northeast corridor is the most prominent area to grow in Washington. None of the others, Northwest or the Southeast areas, because they are all congested right now. So Northeast Washington is where public investment and private investment is going to occur. And so the idea of placing on 8th Street right now, or Benning Road, a new trolley car, that new trolley car represented the idea that Langston will become a endpoint in reference to bringing tourists into the city itself, because of the National Arboretum is it's really attached to the golf course on hole number 3. In the reconstruction of the course itself, the new clubhouse will be in that area to attract people to the National Arboretum and also to the Langston Golf Course, which is on the National Historic Registry itself. So things are being put in place right now to make sure that Langston receives, as a part of the tourist industry in the city, a major concept to say, well, come to Langston or come to the National Arboretum, and that will be the area that will actually expand in Northeast Washington. So it is already in the city plan to make sure that the Anacostia River, the whole concept in that area, Brown Junior High, Phelps, and Spingarn, all are part of this projection within 50 years. So it seems like it's not taking place now, but it will be taking place 10 years from now, and so forth. So if you're in that area, I would say stay there, because your property value will be out of sight soon.
I can say that Representative Clay has been instrumental in getting things done at the local level and the federal level with all that he can do, too. He's working very, very hard to make some of those things happen. We'll take 2 more questions. First there.
My question is aimed at the gentleman, Mr. Garvin. We are one of those grassroots organizations. We're called EGOS. The gentleman here, Walter Ray, is the president. We started off, as Mr. Bridgman might appreciate, as basically a basketball-orientated program, and we couldn't help but see the growth in soccer and golf that's come along in the D.C. area, and we're wondering, is there any more room? Is there any more opportunities that we can get some of our youth to be able to come and participate with some of your programs? And the young lady here, his name is escaping me, forgive me, but so it's aimed basically at you 3.
Who wants to go first? Certainly, there's always going to be a challenge as it relates to finding space. I mean, one of the concerns you have when you operate a property is how much time you can allot for free programs. And the challenge that we face is when you only have an 18-hole golf course, then there's only so much you can give away if you want to keep the doors open. But we found a way to do it.